In the headlines, the Korean government briefs President Park Geun-hye on its plans to revamp the economy by boosting investment, consumption, and bolstering the working class. A group of Islamic State supporters hacked social media accounts of the U.S. Central Command. Washington says there appears to be no security threat. And Charlie Hebdo, the Paris-based satirical magazine, pushes ahead with its next issue. Its first cover after the recent terror attack shows a cartoon of the Prophet Mohammed. The headline says, "All is forgiven." Hello and welcome to ARIRANG News. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Live from Seoul, I am Kang Tae-ri. The Korean government briefed President Park Geun-hye on its 2015 economic policy agenda in its first session on this Monday. It's promising reforms to strengthen Korea's economic fundamentals. Ji-yoon reports.
Opening a joint briefing to the president by 6 economy-related ministries and agencies, Finance Minister Choi Kyung Hwan stressed the importance of overhauling the public sector as the first step in revitalizing the Korean economy, stressing that 2015 is the golden time for structural reforms and innovation. Top economic policymakers laid out plans for strengthening the nation's economic fundamentals and balancing domestic demand and exports. The government plans to focus on reforms in the 4 sectors of labor, finance, the public sector, and education this year. The government said its efforts last year set the stage for implementing the president's 3-year economic reform plan, with its agencies reducing their debt by $22 billion to surpass the initial goal by about $4 billion. Seoul will keep reducing government debt, restructure pension schemes for civil servants, and push forward with other public sector overhauls in the hope of leading reforms in other sectors. For example, the Labor Ministry will promote salaries based on their performance, not seniority. The government will also devise safety net measures for temporary workers to improve working conditions. To better cater to investors in the financial sector, the government will facilitate venture capital projects and prepare an implementation plan for the second phase of reforms. Universities, for their parts, will now be focused on providing more practical education, and designated colleges will now have to match their student quotas with market demand so that students can get hired upon graduation. Ji-yoon, ARIRANG News.
President Park Geun-hye also says it's the public sector that should lead reforms in this country. While receiving reports from government ministries today, she said efforts made last year to reduce the debt held by public institutions fell short of expectations. She urged officials to carry out a second phase of reforms in the new year, which involves putting the brakes on illegal subsidies to help Koreans actually feel the effects of our economic plans. President Park called on the ministries to work together and generate a synergy effect amongst themselves. Korea's main opposition party has sharply criticized President Park Geun-hye's New Year's press conference yesterday, especially her economic and welfare initiatives. The interim leader of the New Politics Alliance for Democracy, Heesang, said this morning that the government's current policy direction cannot improve the livelihoods of the people who are suffering from mounting household debt. Moon stressed that the administration's reform drives are not enough to resolve the problems facing the Korean economy. The opposition chief also called for a reshuffle of the presidential office and more proactive measures when it comes to inter-Korean relations. South Korea and the United States kicked off a 2-day joint naval drill earlier this Tuesday. This is a first since North Korea expressed its willingness to come back to the negotiating table with the South only on the condition that Seoul and Washington call off their joint training. Our Kim Hyun-bin tells us more.
2 U.S. Aegis destroyers, including the 9,200-ton USS Mustin, are currently in the EC for a series of drills conducted in sync with South Korea's 3,200-ton Aegis destroyer, Hwanghae-to the Great. The vessels are here for an annual 2-day joint naval drill to enhance military readiness between the two countries. This year's exercises are the first after Seoul and Washington flatly rejected a proposal from North Korea for an end to the training drills in exchange for a temporary halt to the North's nuclear tests. Pyongyang characterizes the drills as a rehearsal for a northward invasion. The allies have vowed to continue the exercises, saying they are defensive in nature. Also on Tuesday, North Korea said it will press ahead with its policy of simultaneously pursuing nuclear and economic development, despite Seoul and Washington's attempts to end its nuclear programs. The North Nodong Shinmun newspaper on Tuesday said that Pyongyang would stick to its military-first policy and dual-line policy to the very end, while continuing to develop its nuclear capabilities. Prior to this, inter-Korean relations has seemed to be on the right track, as the leaders of both Koreas emphasized the importance of the inter-Korean ties in their New Year's speeches. South Korean President Park Geun-hye on Monday reached out to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, offering an unconditional summit and marking a rare exchange of optimism on the divided Korean peninsula. Kim Hyun-bin, ARIRANG News.
Aside from the odd IPOs here and there by some big-name companies, major headlines from the Korean stock market were few and far between last year. But many market watchers think that it will be a different story this year. Our Song Ji-sun tells us why.
2014 was a lackluster year for the Korean stock market. The benchmark Kospi index closed the year at 1915, 100 points lower than it started, after being trapped in the 200-point range and below the 2,100-point barrier. This year, with the country's economic recovery picking up pace, market analysts expect the Kospi to break out of this pattern and top 2,200, most probably in third or fourth quarter. Among the main factors setting the tone for the market were the Fed's decision to raise its key interest rate and the performance of Samsung Electronics, which accounts for 14% of the overall market capitalization. Many analysts believe the Fed's rate hike will have a limited impact on the bourse, but the big question about Samsung is whether it can shrug off its poor smart performance from the third quarter of last year.
We are expecting a low of 1870 and a high of 2260. There could be some adjustments in the first half following rate changes in the U.S., but the stock market will rise at a moderate rate in the second half.
One main theme for the market this year will be dividend payments. Last year, big-name IPOs took center stage, partly due to the listing of Tail Industries, the de facto holding company of the Samsung Group, and its affiliate Samsung SDS. But the number of companies seeking IPOs will drop by half to around 30 this year. Among them are low-cost airlines Jeju Air and Air Busan, and Hyundai Group's advertising arm, Innocean. The focus this year will be on how shareholders benefit from a government policy on increasing dividend payments. Policymakers have voiced concerns that too many companies are stocking away too much money for reserves and that Korea's dividend payout ratio is lower than that of emerging or developed markets.
We will seek to increase the influence of shareholders in deciding dividend plans to make them more reasonable and help institutional investors to become more involved in the process.
Now, another point to look out for in 2015 is whether the Korean market can be included in the developed market category on the MSCI index, which is an important factor when global fund managers drop their investment portfolios. Korea has been regarded as an emerging market, largely because of its currency's limited convertibility and limits on foreign investors' ability to trade in securities. The question of whether Seoul has made progress on improving investment conditions will be decided in June. Song Ji-sun, ARIRANG News.
Microsoft has enjoyed a virtual monopoly in online shopping in Korea for more than 2 decades, but that's about to end. Financial regulators here say that starting as early as March, shoppers trying to buy things off Korean websites will no longer have to deal with the little box asking them to install a Microsoft security program. Our Connie Kim tells us more.
Many would say it's been a long time coming, but online shoppers in Korea will soon be able to get things much more easily. For starters, the government will no longer require shoppers to install a Microsoft-developed authentication program just to buy something online, under a plan to be introduced as early as March. The ActiveX plugin, which only works on Internet Explorer, has been a must-have for shoppers, making a purchase of over 300,000 won, roughly $275. The system was first implemented in 1999 to ensure safe online payments, but was often criticized for being slow and having poor web compatibility, limiting access to online shopping. Under proposed changes, it'll make online transaction procedures much simpler and let shoppers using other internet browsers, such as Firefox, Chrome, or Safari. The clunky online shopping requirement in Korea was even pointed out by President Park Geun-hye herself during her New Year's press conference on Monday.
액티브X와 같은 이런 낡은 규제에 안주한 결과 국내 소비자의 해외 직구는 폭발적으로 느는데 해외 소비자의 국내 역직구는 걸음마 수준입니다.
With ActiveX on the way out and shoppers having an easier time buying things from Korea-based websites, Korean online retailers hope the country will start turning its e-commerce deficit around. Foreign online purchases of Korean goods are expected at $27.7 million, or 1.5% of Koreans' online purchases of foreign goods last year. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News.
And staying with the shopping, Koreans are willing to pay top dollar for some of their favorite indulgences, even if they are double or even triple the price that they are in other countries. Now, what are these goods in question and why are they so expensive here in Korea? Our Geunhye explains.
What do coffee, wine, and cheese in Korea have in common? They are all popular imports, and they are expensive. In fact, a recent survey of 13 major countries revealed that these 3 products are pulling the largest amount of money out of Korean consumers' pockets. According to Consumers Korea, a Starbucks Americano costs more than 4,000 won in Korea, or roughly $3.80. You'll get the same coffee indulgence for around $2.30 at a Starbucks in the United States. But it's not all that shocking, considering that most Korean brands sell their coffee for similar prices, as coffee consumption has skyrocketed in recent years. The industry is now estimated to be worth around $5.7 billion. Another product stands out too. A bottle of Montes Alpha premium wine from Chile sells for around $39 on Korean shelves, nearly double the price in Australia. And what goes well with the beverage? Cheese. But this too comes at a high price for Koreans. The Laughing Cow, a famous processed cheese product from France, can be bought in Korea for over $4, which is very expensive compared to what the French have to pay, a mere $1.30. The list goes on. 8 out of 42 imported products were found to be the most expensive in Korea, and 11 products were ranked second most expensive. This, despite Korea's efforts to conclude numerous free trade agreements in recent years. Consumers Korea points to the country's distribution system as the reason for the high prices and says that for the general public to benefit from FTAs, the system will need a revision. Geunhye, ARIRANG News.
Skyrocketing sales, plunging oil prices, and a newly found consumer confidence in the U.S. means automakers liking their business and higher stakes riding on this year's North American International Auto Show in Detroit. Dozens of new models will be getting their first public airing in what promises to be a great event in America's Motor City. Ji-yoon reports.
The economic recovery in the United States and tumbling oil prices are having a profound impact on the latest trends at this year's North American International Auto Show in Detroit. Convertibles are making a comeback, mainly due to stronger consumer spending as Americans enjoy the fruits of the strengthening economy.
Well, we got a lot of exciting products. So, we've got 3 new 6 Series behind us. The U.S. market is the largest one for these cars. The convertible, around 60% of all of those that we sell are in the United States. So I think that will be a very strong product during the year.
Another popular item that has a firm place in the hearts of North American drivers is a pickup truck.
As soon as the oil prices drop, they automatically go back to what they're comfortable with. So I think as long as prices stay low, the potential for SUVs and trucks is probably better than we've seen in several years.
Despite the falling oil prices, automakers are being pressured to develop more fuel-efficient models as more stringent environment rules are being put in place around the world. That's why electric and hybrid models are also popular this year. General Motors will debut a new version of its plug-in hybrid Chevrolet Volt, the model's first update in 5 years. Korea's Hyundai Motor will also reveal a new hybrid version of its Sonata sedan. The North American International Auto Show opens to the public on Saturday and runs through January 25th at Detroit's Kobu Center. Ji-yoon, ARIRANG News.
Korea's biggest and brightest were out in force last night for the annual Korea Image Awards. Prizes were dished out to the organizations, brands, or people that best represented Korea over the past 12 months. Connie Lee reports.
So who or what did the best job in promoting Korea this past year? According to one source, it's Korean cosmetics company Amory Pacific. The company was given the Korea Image Stepping Stone Award this year at the 11th CICI Korea ceremony, hosted by the Korea Image Communication Institute. Amory Pacific was awarded for best representing Korean beauty to the world with its cosmetics brands such as Sarasu and Laneige.
We will continue to work hard to make this world more beautiful and happier.
Another honoree was none other than Chinese actress Tang Wei, who was given the Korea Image Stepping Stone Bridge Award for her efforts in promoting Korean culture. She's best known by locals for her role in the 2010 film Late Autumn, directed by her now husband Kim Tae-yong.
This year is the year of the sheep. Born in the year of the sheep myself, I feel like getting this award is a great start to this new year.
And last but not least, the Korea Image Budding Youth Award went to Olympic gold medalist Shim Seok-hee. This 17-year-old short track sensation brought home the gold, silver, and bronze at the 2014 Sochi Winter Olympics. The annual event was attended by 600 people, including Korean actors and dignitaries alike, such as newly appointed U.S. Ambassador to Korea, Mark Lippert.
The image of Korea, it's so positive around the world, but it's also such a hard-working image. But I was just overwhelmed by the warmth and the hospitality shown by the Korean people.
Previous winners of these awards include Samsung Electronics' Galaxy smartphone, singer Psy, and UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon.
I think more than anything, Korean people make the most impact on how Korea is viewed to the world.
Connie Lee, ARIRANG News.
Social media accounts for the U.S. military command have been shut down following a cyber attack by a group claiming to support the Islamic State militants. For more, Paul E. is joining us from the News Center. Paul, the Pentagon has denied that any of its military operational networks were hacked or that classified data was leaked. How is the American government responding?
Well, the FBI has launched an investigation into the case that's been being described as an embarrassing propaganda breach. This as U.S. defense officials have been downplaying the incident as a mere act of cyber vandalism. Nonetheless, these self-declared pro-IS hackers have exploited a security flaw, one that's been used to threaten American military personnel. Our Hung Seung-hee reports.
The U.S. Central Command's Twitter and YouTube accounts were hacked by a group claiming to be supporters of Islamic State militants. The command acknowledged that its social media accounts had been compromised and called it an act of cyber vandalism, although it added there had been no operational impact. Pro-Islamic State messages were plastered over the command's Twitter page. A profile picture showed a figure in a black and white headscarf with the text, "I love you, ISIS." One post read, "American soldiers, we're coming, watch your back." Other posts included the names and contact information of members of the U.S. military, as well as PowerPoint slides and maps. Its YouTube page was also hacked, with 2 video uploads appearing to be linked to the Islamic State. The command focuses on countries in the Middle East, and this hack comes as the U.S. and its coalition partners have been launching airstrikes on Islamic State forces in Iraq and Syria. The FBI is investigating the case, and the White House is also looking into the matter.
I can tell you this is something that we're obviously looking into and something that we take seriously.
And coincidence it may be, but the hack happened as President Barack Obama was announcing new proposals aimed at bolstering cybersecurity. Hwang Sang-hee, ARIRANG News.
And turning to Paris now, the French satirical weekly that came under attack by Islamic gunmen last week, Charlie Hebdo, says it's printing up to 3 million copies of its next issue, which will feature the Prophet Mohammed. Now, it looks like, Paul, this magazine is not really backing down in the face of violence.
Absolutely. This 3 million print run dwarfs the weekly's usual set of 60,000, and is said to be in response to soaring demand for this first edition since the deadly shootings at Charlie Hebdo's offices in Paris. The front page of the issue was revealed on Twitter Monday, featuring a caricature of the Prophet Mohammed holding a sign saying, "All is forgiven." In an interview, the editorial team vowed it would never give in to terrorism and fear.
Yes, we are ready as far as possible, but we are also running very late because we're working in a little bit of chaos. There are many things to organize, not least the production of the paper. Yes, we are ready. The paper will be ready this evening, but if we had 2 extra days, that would have been good.
Charlie Hebdo's surviving staff members have been working around the clock to publish the 8-page issue, scheduled to hit newsstands on Wednesday. 10 of the magazine's leading cartoonists and other colleagues were gunned down last Wednesday in retaliation for printing images criticizing Islam.
Now, let's stay with this story a little bit more. The White House is facing some tough criticism for not sending a more prominent leader to the massive unity march in Paris this past Sunday, especially given that some 40 world leaders attended that historic rally.
Yes, and among them were British Prime Minister David Cameron, German Chancellor Angela Merkel, and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So President Barack Obama's absence didn't go unnoticed. But the White House has spoken up, owning up to this apparent oversight. Spokesman Josh Earnest cited security shortfalls, but said he recognized that someone with a higher profile than America's ambassador should have been present at the rallies. He also reiterated Washington's commitment to its oldest ally.
And I think it's fair to say that we should have sent someone with a higher profile to be there. That said, there is no doubt that the American people and this administration stand foursquare behind our allies in France as they face down this threat.
Meanwhile, France is boosting its security, deploying 10,000 troops across the country as it maintains its highest terror alert level. Police say they're on the lookout for as many as 6 members of a terrorist cell still at large. They believe sleeper cells were activated following last week's 3 days of terror.
Now let's talk about the latest development in the AirAsia disaster, Paul. Indonesia confirms that both black box recorders from the passenger jet that crashed in the Java Sea have been recovered. This is a critical breakthrough for investigators in this case. So what exactly can we expect from this recovery?
Well, the flight data recorder, or FDR, and the cockpit voice recorder, CVR, contain a wealth of information that will be crucial in piecing together this sequence of events on that fateful day on December 28th, and whether this accident was a result of pilot or mechanical error, or both. Indonesia's transport minister announced on Tuesday the successful retrieval of the second black box, which appears to be intact. The voice recorder is expected to be sent to the capital, Jakarta, where forensic experts will begin downloading, then analyzing the data over the coming weeks.
We expect that our people continue to search the passengers, which is quite important because the FDR and CVR have been founded. But the search for the passengers will be continued until as much as we can.
International teams have now refocused their search efforts on the missing victims. Officials believe the remaining bodies will be found in the plane's main fuselage located in waters off the coast of Borneo. So far, the remains of 48 victims have been retrieved. AirAsia Flight 8501 was carrying 162 people on board when it went missing. Cherry?
All right, Paul, thank you so much for those stories, and we will see you again in just about 2 hours. And that will do it for this edition of ARIRANG News. Thanks for watching.